You could spot him from the moment he stepped through the doors. Lucas Reed, the kid whose last name weighed more than any backpack in that school. His sneakers were always the newest release, his jacket worth more than most families' rent. The other students whispered about him, some with envy, others with quiet disgust. To them, Lucas wasn't just another senior. He was the billionaire's son who thought the rules didn't apply. But behind the polished shoes and smirk, something was cracking. Teachers had stopped trying. They signed his report cards with sighs, not hope. Every exam came back with a red mark so low, it was almost cruel. And when the counsellor called him in, Lucas leaned back in the chair, arms folded, and said, "Grades don't matter. My name already bought me the future." The lines spread across the halls like wildfire. Some laughed, others shook their heads. But nobody challenged him, not when his father's name was carved into the school's new science wing. At home, things were colder. Charles Reed, a man whose face had been on magazine covers, sat at the dinner table with his phone in hand and a look that could freeze the air. "You're an embarrassment," he told his son one evening after another failing call from the school. "If you worked for me, you'd be fired." Lucas rolled his eyes. "I'm not your employee. I'm your son." But Charles's reply was sharp, without hesitation. "The world doesn't care. Either you build yourself, or you'll collapse under the weight of my name, and I won't carry you." The silence that followed was heavier than any lecture. Lucas stared at his plate, smirk fading. He wasn't used to his father's words cutting deeper than any grade ever could. The next morning, Lucas slid behind the wheel of his silver sports car, a gift for his last birthday, and parked in the faculty lot like he owned it. Heads turned, some rolled their eyes. He didn't care, or at least, he told himself he didn't. As he strutted down the polished hallway, lined with portraits of alumni who had gone on to Congress, to Wall Street, to history, he felt untouchable. What he didn't notice, what he never noticed, was the woman near the side entrance, mopping the same tile floor he walked across. Her uniform was faded, her hands calloused, but her eyes were steady. She glanced at Lucas as he passed, then bent back to her work. To him, she was invisible, just the janitor. Background noise in a world that already belonged to him. He had no idea that this woman, quiet, unseen, overlooked, was about to become the only person who would truly teach him what it meant to live. It was one of those mornings when even the air felt heavy. Lucas dragged himself into the building, late again, clutching a coffee he didn't even want. His father had finally cut him off. No more credit cards, no more shiny gifts to soften the sting of his failures. The sports car was gone, replaced by the school bus, its sticky seats and loud chatter, a daily reminder that his last name couldn't protect him forever. That day, as he pushed through the side entrance, something unusual caught his ear. A voice, soft, steady, almost like a whisper floating above the sound of the mop sliding across the floor. Lucas slowed down, frowning. "The only real wisdom," the voice murmured, "is in knowing you know nothing." Lucas stopped. He turned. The janitor, this older black woman he had passed 100 times without a glance, didn't even look up. She just kept working, the rhythm of her mop like a heartbeat against the tiles. "What did you just say?" Lucas asked, more defensive than curious. Finally she lifted her eyes, calm and unbothered. "Nothing you're ready to understand, boy." Her tone wasn't cruel, but it wasn't soft either. It was matter of fact, like a mirror he didn't want to face. Lucas forced a laugh, brushing it off as nonsense, but as he walked away, the words stuck. "Knowing you know nothing." By lunch, he couldn't shake it. He sat at the edge of the cafeteria, poking at his tray, watching the world around him blur together. The laughter, the cliques, the endless noise. For the first time, it all felt small. He remembered her eyes, how steady they were, how unafraid. Nobody else ever looked at him that way. That afternoon, another test was handed back. Red ink bled across the page, a failing grade stamped at the top. The teacher's note stung worse than usual. "Did you even read the passage?" The laughter that usually followed him didn't come this time, just silence. And in that silence, he remembered her again. The janitor with the wrinkled uniform and the calm voice. The one person who hadn't been intimidated, who hadn't pretended. She had said something that felt bigger than the room, bigger than his name. That night, lying in bed, Lucas stared at the ceiling. For the first time, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, he wasn't untouchable at all. And maybe the woman he had ignored was the only person who truly saw him. The next day dragged like wet cement. Lucas wandered the halls with his hands stuffed in his pockets, teachers handing back test after test, each one another nail in the coffin. 24% in math, 31 in history, a 0 in biology. Even for him, it was getting harder to smirk his way through the shame. After his last class, Lucas ducked out through the back hallway to avoid the usual stares. That's when he saw her again, the janitor. She was scrubbing up a soda spill by the cafeteria, her movements patient, unhurried, like the mess wasn't a burden at all. Lucas hesitated, then stopped. "You said something the other day about wisdom." She glanced up, eyebrow raised. "And you remembered it?" "Yeah," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "I mean, it stuck with me. Kind of weird hearing a janitor quoting philosophers." She straightened slowly, wiping her hands on a rag. Her gaze locked on him, sharp but steady. "What's weirder is a boy with the world at his feet who can't pass a reading test." The words cut deeper than any red ink. Lucas bit his cheek, defensive, but he couldn't deny it. "You used to be a teacher, didn't you?" Her silence lingered, then she gave the faintest nod. "I was. Not just philosophy, English, history, before life took a turn." For the first time in his life, Lucas didn't feel bigger than someone else. He felt smaller, like a kid caught bluffing at a game he never really understood. His voice cracked softer now. "Then teach me, please. I can't keep failing like this." She studied him for the long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she crossed her arms. "One condition. You leave your name and your pride at the door. You start from 0, from the floor." Lucas swallowed, his throat dry. "Fine," he whispered. "I'll do it. Just don't let me drown." Her lips curved into the faintest smile, one that wasn't pity but promise. "Then show up tomorrow morning, before the sun. Bring a notebook. We'll see if you're serious." Lucas nodded, his chest tight. For the first time he wasn't laughing at himself. For the first time he was afraid, and strangely he wanted to be. She studied him for a long moment, then offered her hand. "Evelyn Wallace," she said. He nodded, a little stunned. "Lucas." The building was still asleep when Lucas showed up the next morning. Fog clung to the windows, the parking lot empty except for the yellow buses lined up like tired soldiers. He pushed open the side door, clutching a blank notebook he had bought the night before. For the first time in his life, it wasn't a luxury item in his hands. It was a lifeline. He found her in the East Wing, polishing the floor in slow, deliberate circles. She wore simple earbuds, humming something soft that faded as she removed one and looked up at him. "You're here," she said plainly. "You told me to come," Lucas replied, shifting on his feet. His usual swagger was gone. All he felt now was awkward. Evelyn set the mop aside and motioned to a small table pushed against the wall. "Sit, let's begin." Lucas slid into the chair, laying the notebook flat. "So, what do I do? Like drills? Vocabulary?" She shook her head. "Not yet. First, you learn how to see." She handed him a battered paperback with creased pages. "Read this." He glanced at the cover, some old novel he'd never heard of. "What's the point?" Her eyes didn't flinch. "The point isn't finishing the book. The point is letting the book finish you." He frowned, but opened into the first page anyway. The words blurred together at first, his mind racing with doubt. But then Evelyn's voice cut in. "What does that sentence make you feel?" Lucas blinked. "I don't know, it's just words." "Read it again," she said calmly. "Not with your mouth, with your chest." He tried, awkwardly. She asked again, "Why do you think the writer stayed silent here? What do you think the silence means?" Lucas stared at the paragraph. For once, he didn't have a smug answer. He actually thought about it. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he said, "Maybe it's what the character couldn't say out loud." A small nod. "Better. That's the beginning of understanding. It's not about right or wrong. It's about learning to listen between the lines." For the next hour, Evelyn didn't lecture. She questioned, she pushed, and for the first time, Lucas wasn't playing defense, he was learning how to think. When the bell rang in the distance, he closed the notebook, surprised to see a few messy sentences scrawled inside. His thoughts, not answers. He looked up at her. "So, this is it? 1 hour a day?" "1 hour at sunrise every day," she said. "And at night, after I finish cleaning, you write what you felt, not what you think you should write. No grades, just honesty." Lucas nodded slowly, holding the notebook tighter. Something inside him stirred, something that had been missing all along. For once, he didn't feel like the billionaire's son. He just felt like a boy at the start of something real. It didn't take long for people to notice something was different. Lucas was showing up earlier than anyone else, his Audi gone, his mornings strangely quiet. He no longer strutted through the hallways like a runway model. Instead, he slipped in with a notebook under his arm, eyes focused, shoulders lower. The whispers began. One afternoon, Lucas was sitting at a table near the back of the cafeteria, scribbling in his notebook. His handwriting was messy, but the words were his, raw and uncertain. Across the room, 2 football players spotted him. One nudged the other and smirked. "Look at Reed, writing love letters to the janitor." Laughter followed. Lucas froze, fists clenching. The old him would have stood up, thrown a chair, maybe even punched someone just to prove he was still untouchable. But before he could move, Evelyn appeared behind him, setting down her mop bucket. She looked at him calmly, her voice low enough for only him to hear. "You don't measure depth with a shallow ruler." He looked up at her, chest tight. The insult from the boys still stung, but her words hit harder. For the first time, he didn't react to their laughter. He let it pass, his pen still in his hand. That night he sat in the empty library with Evelyn, showing her what he'd written. Half thoughts, half confessions, lines about how small he felt, how angry he was at himself, how much he wanted to be more than his father's shadow. Evelyn read silently, then tapped the page with her finger. "This sentence," she said softly, "isn't honest. It's pretty but hollow. Rewrite it, with your soul this time." Lucas frowned, but he tried again and again, until finally the words on the page felt different, like they had come from someplace deeper than his mind. Evelyn gave the faintest nod of approval, then handed the notebook back. "You see," she said, "people laugh because it's easier than admitting they're afraid to change. Let them laugh, you're not here for them." For the first time, Lucas felt a strange kind of strength. Not the loud, arrogant kind he used to wear like armour, but something quieter, steadier, growing in the cracks he'd spent his whole life trying to hide. By the time midterms rolled around, Lucas's grades weren't perfect, but they were different. Essays covered in red ink now carried notes like "good insight" and "keep pushing." His teachers were surprised. Some even smiled when he raised his hand, though most still didn't know what to make of the change. But at home, things weren't getting better. One night, Charles Reed was sitting at the long mahogany dining table, laptop open, phone buzzing beside him. Lucas walked in quietly, slipping his report card onto the table like a peace offering. Charles barely looked up before snatching it. The silence stretched as he scanned the page. "Better," he muttered, "but still nothing to brag about." His eyes narrowed. "Who's helping you, another tutor? Because the last 3 quit." Lucas shifted in his seat. He thought about lying, about making up a name to avoid the fight he knew was coming, but something in him refused to hide anymore. "It's Evelyn," he said finally, "the janitor at school." The words hung in the air like smoke. Charles blinked, then let out a sharp laugh. "You're joking." "I'm not," Lucas said, his voice steady. "She used to be a teacher. She's been teaching me more than anyone else ever has." Charles closed the laptop with a snap and leaned forward. His voice was low, sharp, the kind of tone that made boardrooms go silent. "Do you have any idea how ridiculous that sounds? You're a Reed. You have access to the best tutors in the country, and you're wasting your time with someone who cleans floors?" Lucas felt his chest tighten, but he didn't back down. "She sees me," he said quietly. "You never did." The words cut deeper than he expected. His father's face hardened like stone. You're embarrassing this family. If you keep going down this path, you'll lose everything. Your allowance, your car, your name. Don't test me." Lucas's hands shook under the table, but he lifted his chin. For the first time, he didn't cave. His voice was soft but clear. "Then maybe I need to lose it all, to figure out who I really am." The silence after that was worse than any shouting match. Charles pushed back his chair, stood, and walked away without another word. Lucas sat there alone at the long table, his chest heavy but strangely steady. For once, defying his father didn't feel like weakness. It felt like the first step towards something real. The library at the far end of the building was old and forgotten. Dust gathered on the shelves, and the overhead lights buzzed like tired bees. No one went there anymore, except Lucas and Evelyn. At first, it was just him. Every morning before the sun rose, he sat across from her at a small wooden table, his notebook filling with messy thoughts, his questions spilling out faster than she could answer. But then one evening, Lucas brought someone new. "This is Priya," he said awkwardly. "She's in my biology class. She needs help writing essays." Evelyn studied the girl for a moment, then nodded. "Pull up a chair." One turned into two, two turned into four. Soon the forgotten library began to hum again. Quiet voices, pens scratching, students leaning in as Evelyn asked the same questions she had asked Lucas. "What does this sentence feel like? Why do you think the silence matters? Can you tell me what courage sounds like?" They weren't just learning to pass classes, they were learning to think, to feel, to see the world differently. For the first time in his life, Lucas felt proud of being in a room, not because of his last name, but because of what he was building with her. But word spreads fast in a school where reputations are currency. Parents began asking questions. Teachers noticed students staying late, following the janitor into the library. And then one afternoon, Evelyn was called into the office. The assistant principal leaned back in his chair, his tone polished but cold. "Miss Wallace, we've received concerns. Parents are asking why their kids are spending time with you after hours. This isn't your role." Evelyn folded her hands calmly in her lap. "I'm teaching. You're not certified here. You're hired to clean, not instruct. This is unorthodox and could cause problems." Her eyes stayed steady. "Neither is saving a student from drowning in his own failures, but I did that anyway." The assistant principal's face tightened. "This has to stop, do you understand?" That evening, Lucas found her in the hallway, her mop leaning against the wall. She looked tired, but her back was straighter than ever. "They told you to stop?" Lucas asked, his voice sharp. "Yes." "That's insane. You're helping us. "I know," she interrupted softly. "But that's what systems do. They don't always attack what's broken, they attack what's working." Lucas clenched his fists, anger boiling in his chest. "Then I'll tell my dad. I'll go to the board. I'll go public if I have to." Evelyn rested a hand gently on his shoulder. "Not yet. Your voice needs to stand on its own first, not as a reed, as Lucas." He looked at her, breathing hard, and realised she was right. For the first time in his life, it wasn't about his father's name, it was about his own. And though the walls of the school pressed against them, though the system itself tried to silence what was happening in that old library, Lucas knew one thing for certain. They had already started a revolution. By the end of the week, quiet emails had gone out, the kind that blame budget lines for human choices. A week later, Lucas walked out of English class with something he'd never held before. A paper marked with a bold red A. At the bottom, his teacher had scribbled, "You've found your voice." Lucas stared at the grade, his chest filling with a pride he didn't recognise. For the first time, he thought maybe he was worth more than his last name. That night, he carried the paper home like a trophy. His father was in the garage, standing beside a sleek new electric car, a wireless earpiece hooked over his ear, barking orders about mergers. Lucas waited for a pause, then held out the essay. "Dad," he said, his voice hopeful, "I want to show you something. I worked hard for this." Charles glanced at the page, one eyebrow raised. "An essay? Lucas, this looks like a diary entry about feelings." "It's not," Lucas pushed back. "It's about growth, about learning. I got an A." Charles let out a sharp laugh, tossing the paper onto the passenger seat. "This isn't academic, it's sentimental. Who taught you to write like this?" Lucas hesitated, then he said it. "Evelyn, the janitor." Silence. His father stepped closer, voice dropping low. "You're telling me the person mopping floors is shaping my son? She's a failure, Lucas. And if you don't stop seeing her, you'll lose everything. Your allowance, your car, your name. Don't test me." Lucas's fists tightened, his voice shaking but clear. "She's done more for me than you ever have. And maybe I need to lose it all to figure out who I really am." Charles's eyes went cold. "Then pack your things, you're done." The next morning at school, Evelyn was gone. No goodbye, no explanation. Her bucket, her mop, her coat vanished as if she had never been there. Word spread fast. Budget cuts, they said, but everyone knew better. Lucas searched every hallway, every corner of the old library, until the truth sank in. She had been fired, silenced. For days he drifted through the building like a ghost. The notebook still sat heavy in his backpack, but he couldn't bring himself to open it. His grades slipped again, not from ignorance, but from the hollow space she had left behind. Then, one morning, as he passed the bulletin board outside the main office, he saw a new announcement pinned in bold black letters. End-of-year speech contest. Topic: what it means to win in life. Open to families and the community. Lucas stood frozen, reading the words over and over. His chest ached, but his hands trembled with something else. Fire. He pulled the notebook from his bag, flipped to a blank page and scrawled in shaky handwriting. Not for grades, not for applause, for her. The fight wasn't over, it was just beginning. Even after threatening to throw him out, his father sat in the second row, arms crossed, anger hiding something softer he wouldn't name. The night of the speech contest, the auditorium buzzed with energy. Parents in pressed coats filled the rows, students whispered nervously backstage, and college recruiters sat quietly in the back with clipboards. For most kids, it was just another requirement. For Lucas, it felt like war. He stood behind the curtain in a plain navy shirt and jeans. No designer shoes, no polished tie, no armour of wealth, just him, a notebook, and a heart pounding so hard he thought the audience might hear it. When his name was called, the room fell into a hush. He stepped onto the stage. The spotlight burned hot against his skin. For a moment he froze, staring at the crowd of familiar faces, classmates who had mocked him, teachers who had given up. And in the second row, his father, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Lucas took a shaky breath. "My name is Lucas Reed," he began. "Some of you know me as the kid who wasted every chance, who failed test after test, who walked these halls like I didn't care about anything. They say I had everything, but I didn't have the one thing that mattered." He paused, the silence stretching. "I didn't have someone who believed in me, not until she showed up." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lucas tightened his grip on the notebook. "She wasn't a teacher, not officially. She had no classroom, no office, just a mop and a heart big enough to see through my anger. She taught me how to think, how to write, how to listen. She didn't just clean the floors of this school, she cleared the fog in my head." The air in the auditorium shifted, parents leaned forward, teachers sat straighter. "But she was fired," Lucas said, his voice breaking. "Because systems don't like it when someone at the bottom makes a difference, and yet everything I am becoming started with her. So tonight, I'm not speaking for a grade or a scholarship, I'm speaking to honour her." He lifted the worn notebook, pages filled with her notes and his messy handwriting. "She told me once that real learning isn't about passing. It's about transformation, that winning isn't about being rich or powerful, it's about becoming someone worth remembering, and that's what I want to be." For a moment the room was still. Then a single clap echoed, followed by another, until the auditorium rose to its feet in thunderous applause. Students cheered, parents wiped tears, even a few teachers cried. And at the very back of the room, almost hidden by the shadows, Lucas spotted her. Evelyn. A headscarf covering her hair, eyes shining with quiet pride. She had come back, not to fight, not to reclaim her job, but simply to watch him shine. Lucas swallowed hard, his chest aching, and smiled through the tears he hadn't realised were falling. For the first time, he wasn't just Charles Reed's son. He was his own name. The video of Lucas's speech spread faster than any headline his father's company had ever made. Billionaire's son credits school janitor for saving his life. It showed up on student group chats, then alumni pages, then local news. By the end of the week, people across the city knew her name, Evelyn Wallace. At first, she didn't want the attention. She kept her head down, working odd jobs, staying quiet. But invitations started to arrive. A community college asked her to speak. Then a non-profit wanted her to lead a workshop. Soon, Evelyn was teaching again. Not in secret, not in the shadows, but in front of classrooms full of students who were desperate to be seen. Lucas, meanwhile, finished the year with grades he had earned, not grades handed to him. His teachers noted his effort, his classmates noticed his change. When college letters came, he turned down the Ivy League offers his father had once dreamed of. Instead, he chose a smaller school focused on social justice and education. When asked why, he simply said, "Because I want to teach the way she taught me, with honesty, with depth, without shame." The summer after graduation, Lucas drove to a modest neighbourhood on the edge of the city. He knocked on a door with peeling paint, his backpack slung over one shoulder. Evelyn opened it, surprised but smiling. "You didn't have to come all this way," she said. "I did," Lucas replied, handing her an envelope. Inside was his high school diploma, his college acceptance letter, and something else, a handwritten proposal. "I want to start a place," he explained, his voice trembling. "A centre where kids like me, kids written off, kids nobody believes in, can come to learn the way you taught me. Not for grades, not for applause, just for truth. I want to call it the Evelyn Centre." Evelyn read the letter, tears welling in her eyes. She looked up at him, her voice breaking. "Why me?" "Because everything I am now," Lucas whispered, "started with you." She set the letter down, placing a hand over his. "Only if we do it together." "Always," he promised. Months later, the Evelyn Centre opened its doors in a converted community building. Old classrooms became spaces for writing circles, late-night study groups, mentorship programs. Evelyn stood at the chalkboard once again, teaching not just grammar and literature, but resilience and self-worth. Lucas ran the programs but never stopped learning. Word spread quickly, local newspapers covered the story, awards followed, but none of it mattered as much as the kids themselves. One afternoon, a 12-year-old boy handed Evelyn a notebook and said softly, "This place made me feel smart for the first time." She cried that day, and so did Lucas. And when Charles Reed finally walked into the building for the first time, he didn't speak as a billionaire or as a father demanding perfection. He stood quietly in the back, listening as his son talked about justice, humility, and the courage to see others. After the event, outside in the evening air, Charles turned to his son with damp eyes. "I didn't expect to cry," he admitted. Lucas looked at him, steady but gentle. "I didn't expect to forgive you." They embraced, not as billionaire and heir, not even as father and son, but as two men finally trying to understand each other. Years later, Lucas stood on another stage, holding a national award for education. Cameras flashed, the crowd waited, but his words were simple. They said, "I failed every test until I learned one secret. That greatness doesn't come from being seen, it comes from seeing others, and sometimes the person who changes your life isn't wearing a suit. They're holding a mop, whispering wisdom when no one else is listening. Her name is Evelyn Wallace, and she didn't just save my grades, she saved my soul." The room rose to its feet, and in the front row, Evelyn sat quietly, tears shining in her eyes, proud not just of what Lucas had become, but of the truth they had built together. Lesson: true success isn't measured by wealth, grades, or names we inherit. It's found in humility, in the courage to learn from anyone, and in becoming someone who sees and lifts others. Thank you for staying with this story until the very end. I'm truly grateful for your time. If this touched you in any way, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you again soon, right here on Rain Inside.